The distinct scent of animal hit Mr. Thompson's nostrils the moment he opened his apartment door. Most people couldn't discern the natural odors of cats or dogs unless their noses were practically buried in the pet's fur. There was the occasional exceptionally unpleasant animal smell, but those were rare. Mr. Thompson, however, was no ordinary man. His sense of smell was extraordinarily acute. He was a professional perfumer, crafting exquisite fragrances, meticulously measuring each drop of aromatic component. His profession had honed his olfactory senses to such a degree that he could unfailingly identify the scent of a kitten, even if it had just been brought into a house. As he crossed the threshold, his gaze immediately fell upon the unusual commotion in his daughter, Lily's, room. She was nervously wiping up a puddle in the middle of the floor. He entered, frowning, and demanded, "What's going on here? Did the kitten have an accident?" Lily, trying to conceal her discovery, hid a small, fluffy creature behind her back and pleaded, "Daddy, please. Look how cute he is." His response was firm and uncompromising, "You know the rule, no pets in the house. You never let me do anything." Lily almost shouted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Mr. Thompson, irritated by her tone, started to retort, but she added, "You always say no." The argument might have ended there, but events conspired to escalate their quarrel. Mr. Thompson was exhausted from a long workday, and Lily had accumulated a reservoir of resentment she could no longer contain. They yelled at each other like two enraged animals, completely losing control of their emotions. Meanwhile, the curious kitten decided to investigate an unusual object. Finding Mr. Thompson's work briefcase, it began sharpening its claws on it. Suddenly, the briefcase tipped over, falling on its side. Mr. Thompson cried out, "Did he bring this home, a sample from the competition?" A fragile, tiny vial shattered into hundreds of pieces, its contents spilling out. He had been pursuing this sample for a long time, holding high hopes for it. The incident was devastating. A red haze seemed to cloud his vision. In a fit of rage, he shouted, and Lily, terrified, scurried under the bed. He grabbed the kitten, flung it away from the briefcase, and then buried his face in his hands. The small, fluffy creature landed on the desk, hitting its head and paw. Mr. Thompson, consumed by fury, turned beet red. He stood up, grabbed the kitten by the scruff of its neck, threw open the window, and mercilessly tossed it into the street. Slamming the door with a jarring thud, he left the room. Lily remained hidden, afraid to confront her father. In the whirlwind of their emotions, they completely forgot about the kitten. The poor animal lay on the cold sidewalk, barely moving. Its whole body ached, and warm liquid flowed from its head. It tried to lift its paw to wipe away the unpleasant moisture, but it lacked the strength. This, however, was far from the worst ordeal. A buzzing sound emerged, and a large fly landed directly on the bloody spot on the kitten's head. It clearly enjoyed the spot, because within minutes it had attracted a swarm of its companions. The kitten's head was covered on all sides, the itching from the bites became unbearable. It couldn't defend itself, and the brazen insects crawled into its eyes. The suffering creature squeezed its eyes shut, failing to notice a car stopping nearby. A woman and a man using crutches emerged. "Oh, my God!" exclaimed Sarah, noticing the kitten sprawled on the pavement. She helped her husband, Mark, out of the car, but turning towards the building, she noticed the swarm of flies on the kitten. "It's still alive," Mark said in surprise. "Alive? Seriously?" Sarah didn't believe it. "There's a whole swarm of flies on it, poor thing." She wanted to lead her husband inside, but he gently pushed her hand away, leaning on his crutch, and approached the kitten. Despite its dire condition, the animal was still breathing, though only noticeable upon close inspection. Mark shooed away the bothersome flies, and the kitten slightly opened its eyes. "It's really alive!" Sarah exclaimed, hurrying home for an empty box. Returning, she gently placed the little sufferer inside, deciding that they would definitely try to help it. Once inside, Mark immediately went to the bathroom. Carefully sitting on the edge of the tub, he thoroughly washed his hands, took the weakened kitten, and diligently began cleaning the open wound on its head. The flies had already laid their eggs, forcing him to work meticulously to thoroughly wash and treat everything. Meanwhile, Sarah, in the kitchen, warmed some milk and searched for a syringe that hadn't yet been unpacked. The kitten was so small and weak that it couldn't eat on its own. After bathing and completing all the necessary procedures, the couple fed the kitten with a syringe. It spent the night in the box, where it was warm and cozy, and the next morning went with its new owners to the vet. Veterinarian, Dr. Kitten, after carefully examining the tiny creature, sighed heavily, her voice somber. "The situation is extremely serious." After a detailed examination, she delivered a grim diagnosis. The kitten had a serious head injury. The open wound on its head affected not only the skin and bone but also the eye. In addition, its jaw was broken in 2 places, and its small body was covered with numerous hematomas. Dr. Kitten doubted the animal would survive. Despite the bleak prognosis, the couple firmly decided to fight for the kitten's life. "Every life is a precious gift to be cherished," they explained their decision. Every day was filled with care. They gave injections, cleaned wounds, and instilled drops into the damaged eye. They had to continue feeding it with the syringe because of its broken jaw. Mark, jokingly making light of the situation, said, "We're both cripples here." He had recently undergone knee surgery and was undergoing rehabilitation at home. Sarah continued to go to work, so the primary care of the kitten fell to Mark. Mark showed exceptional patience and care. He carefully monitored the kitten's condition, performing all the necessary procedures, strictly adhering to the veterinarian's recommendations, feeding it on schedule, and observing any changes in its behavior. These efforts were not in vain. After 10 days, the kitten began to stand on its paws and even tried to catch sunbeams. This progress inspired the couple, and they continued treatment. However, they couldn't save the eye, and it had to be removed. The jaw healed with a slight misalignment, giving the kitten a unique look. It seemed as if it was winking and slightly sticking out its tongue. This seemed amusing, if one didn't know what it had been through. Gradually, the hematomas disappeared, and the wounds on its head healed. The kitten began to behave like a normal kitten. It was playful, curious, active, and incredibly cute. The kitten became so attached to Sarah that it considered her its mother, following her everywhere and actively participating in all her affairs. When Mark recovered and returned to work, the kitten noticeably saddened. It waited for its owner for a long time at the door, making itself a cozy spot in the closet where winter clothes were stored. There it dozed and waited while the house was empty. The main problem remained its food. A growing organism required a variety of food, but the crooked jaw hindered the normal development of its teeth, of which there were significantly fewer than needed. One tooth even had to be removed due to improper growth. Therefore, the animal was fed only soft food. Sarah lovingly prepared it for him, grinding vegetables, meat, and fish. The couple discussed for a long time what name to give their pet. Finally, remembering the veterinarian's words about its fall from a height, they decided to name it after a pilot or astronaut. Sarah suggested the name Comet, and soon the kitten had an official document with its new name and the owner's data. Comet lived a full life, delighting its owners and becoming a symbol of resilience and love for them. The couple treated their pet like a child. They played with it, hugged it, and each of its achievements or mischievous acts caused them sincere delight. In return, the kitten purred loudly, and its fur shone with happiness. Time passed, and the little creature grew into a large, active cat. He especially enjoyed chasing flies, playing with softballs, and hunting toy mice. However, the vacuum cleaner became his worst enemy. The cat feared its noise and always ran away from the monster on wheels. Childhood trauma left him with a fear of heights. An unusual trait of this cat was his indifference to sticks and windowsills. Sarah humorously noted, "The curtains are safe with him." Comet rarely appeared on the balcony, preferring to observe what was happening on the street from his owner's arms. He didn't try to climb the cupboards, but he happily hid under sofas or dived headfirst into piles of clothes in the closet. One day, the couple decided to update their furniture and bought a new dresser. While Mark carried the purchase into the apartment in parts, the front door remained open. The curious cat, seeing this unusual situation, poked its head out onto the landing. Before that, he had never gone outside, but the open door beckoned, and Comet resolutely stepped onto the stairs. He began to look around until a little girl descending from the upper floors with her parents noticed him. "Oh, what a funny kitty," she exclaimed joyfully. Comet turned to the voice. Seeing his face, the girl laughed. The cat's appearance was indeed unusual, with a squinted eye and a protruding tongue. "Look, Daddy, what a funny one," she pointed to the animal. The man standing next to her also looked at the cat. Although his reaction was restrained, his gaze still caught the unusual face. "Interesting creature," he mumbled. Mark heard their conversation and decided to tell them how the cat appeared in their home. With each word, the man grew paler. Meanwhile, the girl, stroking Comet, lifted him up and brought him closer to her parents. Unexpectedly, the cat, letting out a menacing growl, wriggled free, jumped to the floor, and swiftly rushed towards the man. Like lightning, it attacked his shoes and, unleashing its claws, left deep scratches on them. Then, without delay, the cat hid in the apartment, leaving everyone stunned. The silent pause didn't last long. Mark immediately began to apologize. "I'm so sorry, he never behaves like that, usually he's good, purrs, and comes to you himself. I can't understand what happened. I'll compensate for the damage. I hope he didn't scratch you. If necessary, I can show you his vaccination records." The neighbor sharply replied, "Don't bother. It's fine. Goodbye." He grabbed his daughter's hand and hurried out of the building. The man's wife tried to say something and even demanded compensation for the damaged shoes, but the neighbor cut her off and quickly led his family out into the street. Mark hastily found his cat. The animal looked completely normal, except that it occasionally looked suspiciously around. By nightfall, the furry friend returned to its usual behavior. Mark recounted the incident. "He attacked the neighbor with such fury that I barely had time to figure out what was happening. He tore his sneakers to shreds. Now, I guess I'll have to go to him, offer compensation for the shoes, or buy him new ones." Sarah, gently stroking the silent cat, tilted her head and listened carefully to her husband's story. Her words were unexpected. "You don't need to compensate anything. I know for sure that people don't become the object of aggression from animals without a reason. Something's not right here. Notice that this family's windows overlook the very sidewalk where we found our kitten. I think he just recognized his abuser and decided to take revenge. A pair of ruined sneakers is a negligible price for a maimed life." Comet lived a long and happy life, delighting his caring owners. Even the lack of an eye and the need to eat only soft food did not prevent him from enjoying every day. In love and care, any inconveniences ceased to be significant. As for the neighbor, his conscience gnawed at him for only a few days. However, he soon forgot about the incident, throwing away the damaged shoes. He tried not to cross paths with Sarah and even avoided looking in her direction, carefully avoiding her apartment.